Welcome to Sex, Lies, and Blank Pages with our very special guest, Denise Madre. Welcome.
Thank you,
We are
thank you.
so excited to have you join us.
I'm glad to be here. Thank
The
you.
girl that became TikTok famous and what you said since April.
Literally since April. Like my followers have quintupled since the beginning of April. I went from like 1500 to I don't know, 72, 76 or
Yeah.
something.
Well, was how
And
I found you.
Yes.
yeah, which was really like, and I think you were the first person to reach out to me for that reason. And we live in a world where people are weird and scammy. And so I was just like, because a friend of mine actually recently got scammed. Someone tried to offer her fake Savannah Banana tickets. And I was involved because I thought, oh, this is so nice. She has extra tickets. And then my friend is like, this is getting weird. So I jumped into the chat and I'm like, this isn't right. So when I got your message, I'm like, let me just assume this is for real. And you obviously had seen some of my posts. So I'm like, oh, yeah, she's legit. She is who she says she is. So I don't have to worry.
I'm gonna tell you, she is real. I
Good. So this isn't like an AI kind of bot thing. This is good.
Say I'd make myself much hotter than this.
I don't think you could. I
You
don't
look
think
good.
you could.
Yeah, like
You're
that.
yes.
Tell you, but for our audience who's listening and they haven't heard about you, who are you? What's your background? Give them all the tea.
Who am I? Lord, I don't know how much time we have, but I am an editor by trade and also by passion because I love storytelling and I believe in helping writers uncover the best work they can. And so I do that through developmental editing, line editing, copy editing. I shy away from proofreading because it's a little too persnickety even for me. But I also offer project consultations, and recently I started offering separate sensitivity reads and edits, which is how all of this happened. And it was so funny because I was in a group that I'm in, and they were talking about when you're reading a book, and this is, when you're reading a book that's written in African American vernacular English, some people feel that books like that don't need to be edited because you should just let the language be what it is. I'm a person who believes you should edit everything. And it's important that we understand that AAVE is not just slang and words without the G's on the end with a bunch of apostrophes.
Mhm.
AAVE is an actual it's a dialect of standard American English, and it has a vernacular, it has syntax, it has grammar, it has diction, and those things need to be honored. So I posted that on my page, and someone asked me in the comments, how do you feel about white writers using AAVE in their work?
Mhm.
And I said, well, I kind of feel that if the whole thing is written in standard American English and wham, the Black character appears and all of a sudden there's AAVE, it's really jarring, it's unnecessary, and it's just something I don't recommend. And from there, a lot of people in comments are like, so how do you feel about writing inclusively? And what about writing this kind of character? And I'm writing this kind of character. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. And so from there, that's really how my numbers went up and how I landed here, because a lot of people were just asking me questions about how to write inclusively in a respectful way. And I'm all too happy to answer what I can, because I think if you're curious enough about what you're doing and you're willing to ask, then I'm happy to be the person to answer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love
I
that.
think right. Oh, go ahead, Will.
I was just gonna say, I can tell you the first time, like I was not scared to write women of color, but more like, am I going to do a good enough job? Is this my place? And then I was on Twitter years and years and years ago. And also there are a lot of women of color and also children of color in my neighborhood. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll be damned if my children marry somebody who's not white and I only have white love stories. I'm like,
Yes.
I need to represent, but I was like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And I was scrolling on Twitter years ago, and a Black woman said, I just want to read a love story with a Black woman in it. Like, can I just have a good fun? And I was
Can
like,
you
I
just
can
have
do
one?
that. And
Yeah.
my first one, it was actually a man. He's a Black man in a small town. And he was my first like hero, and
Aw.
I was like, I can do this for her. Like, and it felt so good. And I was like, okay, so I feel like for me, there doesn't appear to be like a gray area. It pretty much is black and white. Like, I shouldn't be telling stories that I don't know. And there's
Right.
a place for that. But also, if I shouldn't whitewash a character. Like, he is black, and my women of color, they are of their ethnicity, right? So life is different. for them.
Yeah.
But I'm not focusing on sensitive topics. Instead of
Yes.
just showing as they're human
Yeah.
beings and they're
Yeah, I think
a love
that's
story.
what
Yeah.
what I
That,
get is
yeah.
they're just human. We all bleed and love and, have families the same. If I
Yeah.
was writing contemporary is set into like a neighborhood that like brought up then that stuff, then no, my white ass should shut up. But most of mine have
Respectfully, but
dragons.
yes.
you know, um, most of them have dragons and, Day and Fae and like all, like all that kind of stuff. And I guess I feel like I'm writing human. Their,
Yes.
color, skin,
Yeah.
maybe brought up once at all of them, and then after
But
that, it's
even
got
to that
human.
point, it's so interesting because I asked a question on one of my posts, like, um, if a writer does not specify the skin color of a character, how do you envision them? And,
Mhm.
setting aside people who have, what is it, aphantasia, where they don't see anyway, they don't envision things that way. Some people said, well, there's kind of like a gray blob where the character is, so I don't really envision anything. But one of the comments I kept seeing was, well, I don't really think about the race of a character unless it matters in the story. And that was so interesting to me because I'm like, so we only think race matters in certain cases,
Mhm.
as if representation itself doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So,
Kind of like saying I don't see color when it's like, well, you should because equity is just
Yeah.
as important as equality.
and
And
also because I'm beautiful and brown, I'm beautifully
yes,
brown. And if you can't see
Yes.
that, something's wrong with you.
Right.
But I also think it's that, and that's one of the things that makes white writers writing characters of color such a challenge because there is a paradox there. On the one hand, yes, we all, bleed and put our pants on the same way for the most part, unless you're really creative. And so we do need to write our characters as full people, but you also can't write them as though they are white because they're not. So you
exactly.
have to find that line. Now, you don't really have the perspective to find that line on your own. You can research and and even with research, it's like, what are you looking up and where are your sources?
Mhm.
Because just because you read, like you may read a bunch of Farah Roshan books, or you may read a bunch of Terry McMillan, and you may watch a bunch of Black movies, and you're like, I'm ready. No, you're not,
Mhm.
because just because you saw us do it in film or you read us doing it in a book doesn't mean your Black character should, because there's some things that are ours and there's some things that are you can pull from.
And
And so that's why sensitivity readers are so important.
that's what I was going to bring up. And now, sensitivity readers, years and years ago, when Facebook was massive, there was a Facebook group where authors and readers could meet and join, and requests could be made. And it was like to find somebody who might be good. As also, no community is a monolith, right?
Yes,
Sometimes
yes,
multiple sensitivity readers in your alpha or your beta stage can be great. Where
yes,
I don't know if you have the answer to this. What do you think with authors? Obviously, I have a group of readers now I love,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
know where to go, I know who to talk to, but a lot of authors don't. Um,
yeah.
do you think, and this is how I started, and I don't know that this is good for the now, having a reader who is a person of color, who, you think, they like my work, they've read my work before, that just reaching out in that kind of cold call of like, would you mind just taking a look at this? Probably might not be the best. Now that
It's
I think
not
back on
only because it creates a potential awkwardness, because just
it.
because they are a person of color and you're like, let's say they're a Vietnamese reader and you
Mhm.
have a Vietnamese character in your book, that may not make them the best beta reader or sensitivity reader, because they are just one person,
Mhm.
and they may be looking to from a perspective of, well, I personally am not offended by this, or I personally have a problem with that. My recommendation, because I'm in several groups on Facebook, and I know it's kind of the dinosaur of the social media world, but I think it's great.
It is
I
Still
love
I
it,
there.
still love it.
especially
Yeah.
for writers. There's so many
Yeah.
groups for writers, and I think when you put your feelers out there, you can join all kinds of writing groups and indicate you're looking for a sensitivity reader. I also have to mention there's this fabulous site. It is Writing with Color. It's on Tumblr. So you can add Tumblr, Writing with Color, one string, or you can go to writingwithcolor.tumblr.com.
Mhm.
It is a warehouse of information on how to write characters of color, not just here in the US, but globally. They talk about different stereotypes. They talk about, you can actually put in the Google for this website what your concern is, and you can get answers to a lot of your questions. And I think as you start to branch out, yes, you can cold call and kind of just say, hey, this is my book. I know you reviewed it and I think you liked it. But you can also join the groups on Facebook. You can check Writing with Color to get more information. And if you're on social media at all, just put out the call that this is what you're looking for. And you may find someone who's willing to do that. If you know your editor may not be the person who does that, but they may know someone who knows someone, and you trickle on down the lane. But what you want in a sensitivity editor is someone, or a reader, because those are not the same thing. A sensitivity reader is going to, at least when I do it, when I'm sensitivity reading, I am reading your work, I'm giving you feedback, and I'm leaving it up to you to change it. Some people are just like, could you just do it for me? And I don't mind if it's something I feel comfortable with. So I am performing a line edit and a copy edit and a sensitivity edit where you're telling me the characters you're concerned about, and I'm actually looking at what they're saying and what they're doing, how they're being discussed, how they're being incorporated. And even as I'm making the changes, I'm telling you in the comments, okay, this is a problem for this reason. Or people may have a problem with this. There was a sensitivity edit I just did where one of the characters was intentionally bigoted, like he was intentionally obnoxious. And I said, for him, I will leave this word in. It wasn't that word, but it was a word. And I said, I will leave this in for him. For your Black character, I will not have him say that because that feels like a caricature. He's supposed to be obnoxious, so we can leave it for him. Now, that's a sensibility that I would not expect a white editor to have. How could you? You just don't have the lived in experience, and you can't Google that kind of thing. You can get some feedback and some information, but honestly, you have to be willing to write it. And I think that's the scariest part. I'm getting a lot of DMs like, I'm just afraid of offending someone. Well, you will.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's because we're not.
That's just writing in general, writing
Yeah.
In general.
That's why so many people are coming to you. We feel very scared right now because you see it everywhere on TikTok, people being attacked. And a lot of times it's white people coming after them for a story, situation that even I'm finding Black people going, that's not a big deal to us.
We don't care.
So I feel like right now there's a lot of fear of writing.
Yeah.
But that's just, I think, in general also. And we've discussed that on this podcast with like animosity within book talk, where sometimes things are out of proportion or people are trying to and follows.
Yes.
And I'm like, I write it. My thing is write for yourself, edit for the masses.
Yes.
Which means making sure that even though you think that something might not be offensive, if the point of your book is not for that to be offensive and that surprises you that it's offensive, A, that's something to learn, and B, something to edit, right?
Yes.
So that you have those sensitivity readers. But I write dark romance, and I've been canceled a few times back in the day when dark romance was a horrible, horrible thing. And now my bestseller, I know, right? I lost so much support. Like when I wrote Merciless, which is book 1 of All He'll Ever Be, which is what I'm known for, I was dropped by like all the, back in the day, it was the bloggers on Facebook, right? Because he's abusive, and how dare him, like they were like, we thought the brother would be the hero because he's just so awful. And I'm like, oh, he is awful. My bad. I'll see you guys when I write the next small town.
Yeah, but this purity culture now, it's coming back. That dark romance is getting hit again.
It is.
I just saw something on like that. People were just coming after this one, and I'm like, that topic has been out there forever. And they're just
and it's
right
also
now.
like there's so many books.
Yeah,
just read the ones you like.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I mean, I think people really forget that like shutting up and sitting down is still free. It's still an option. Like you don't,
Thank you.
don't have to comment on everything. And it's actually one of the things that I always try to tell people when they're writing characters of color, and even in another marginalized group. If you want to write a deaf character or an autistic character, I mean, I have 3 autistic children, and I haven't lived the experience, but I have raised 3 fabulous humans who, are on the spectrum. So I don't have the same authority they do, but I do tell people, if you're going to write a character from a marginalized group, you first have to just settle that they're not a monolith. And you might get someone like me who gives you feedback and I think, hey, this is great. There may be someone else who fits my same demographic, Black woman, grew up in the inner city, mid 40s, oh Lord, late 40s. And feels
I heard
completely
20.
differently.
You look like
No, baby, I'm okay with
I know.
being 47 because I don't look it. So I'm fine with that. But I just forgot momentarily. But
Well,
I feel like you have to just accept. I mean, there are people who don't like Pride and Prejudice, which is so what chance do any of us have, really? And so if you can embrace the fact that, you know what, this person is giving me feedback that they were offended by this. But if I know I did the research and I know I had beta readers and sensitivity readers and my ARC readers didn't have a problem with it, okay, this is one voice, no problem. Even if there's multiple voices and they're all kind of saying the same thing, now you have a decision to make the next time you write. Okay, well, this is something that even though some people have a problem with it, some people don't. I get to decide, do I want to go there in my next book if I decide to do that? And so I think if and I said this in a recent video, that you don't have to decide, I'm going to write a character of color and then make them the star of your book. I mean, there's the main character, there are secondary characters, there are minor characters. There's the doctor, there's the teacher, there's the grocer, there's the person next door. And you can, it sounds weird to say you have to start small to write a character based on real people. Mm-hmm. But in all honesty, if you're that nervous about it, honey, give yourself a break. Mm-hmm. No one's making you, respectfully, no one's making you diversify your cast. I mean, I know it feels like you have to because you don't want to get canceled, but really, no one's making you do that. So if you're not ready, then start small. Instead of doing, you know, as I said in a video earlier, if you're not going to use the detective in the domestic thriller to be a character of color, then maybe their neighbor is. Mm-hmm. And you just work on, okay, the neighbor sees them in the morning and they have a conversation. The neighbor's throwing a party for her son and she invites him over for cake. Now, is she a major player in the story? No, but you're getting your feet wet and you're feeling less weird about it, even though being a writer is inherently weird. So there's also that, like, it'll never totally go away, but there's ways to avoid it inhibiting you to the point where you feel stymied because you've decided to take this on. Honey, if you're not ready to do it, just don't do it. It's just safer that way for your sanity.
That is fantastic advice. Yes. So just going back to like editing, if you offend, I mean, we've seen other artists in other industry, like when Taylor Swift had a song come out and in the music video, she, part of her, it was about insecurities, and she looked down at the scale and it said fat on the scale. And there was a lot of backlash to that. And I can understand because even like after my third baby, I gained a lot of weight and I hit on the scale the highest weight that I'd ever been. And I went to a book signing and somebody asked me if I was pregnant while I was drinking. And I knew, and I had my own insecurities, right? So me seeing that, it absolutely did affect me. And now I'm very happy with it. I've done a lot of work and it needed to happen. But me seeing that, I felt a little bit relatable. At the same time, I understood the backlash, right? And we're talking about Taylor Swift, right? She's, I don't know how many billions of dollars, whatever, been forever. Exactly. She's a star of her own. She was what, the 7th most listened to musician ever. She decided to edit it. Even though I believe as an artist, it was true to her train of thought. Obviously, I don't know if she's had any, eating disorders or anything like that, but it was true to her art. But because she offended a portion of people, and even though the community isn't a monolith and some people were relating to it, she decided to edit because she simply didn't want to be offensive. She wanted everybody in most capacity to love the song and to have the experience she wanted. And I think that we can all learn from that also and just say, like, it's okay to edit. It's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are proof that we're trying.
Yes.
So, yeah, I've one of the things I tell people is fall in love with failing. Because
you have to.
You're going to love to do it. And, just, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to venture into an area. But I do love sensitivity readers because the fewer mistakes we can make, the fewer harm we can cause. Let's, edit for the night. So,
and I also think that there is something to be said for the way you respond when you get feedback. I had 2 separate incidents a couple years apart where I read something in a book and I was like, wow, okay. And I reached out to the authors. One was an acquaintance through Facebook. We were in a fandom together and I barely knew her, but she sent me an ARC because she was looking to get one of the review counts for one of her books up, and I read her book. And there was a line in it that literally said that this Black character, the only one in the book, had, and I quote, clawed her way out of the ghetto to achieve her dream of the way clawed her way out of the ghetto to achieve her dream of being a college professor. And I threw my phone down because I was reading it on my phone, and I gathered myself and I sent her a message and I said, so I'm reading your book. I got to this character and I'm just curious, why did you give her this backstory? And she said, oh, I didn't mean to offend you. I said, well, that's great, because I'm not offended. I'm not asking from that perspective. I'm asking writer to writer, why did you give her this backstory? And she hemmed and hawed and eventually said, oh, it was a long time ago, I don't remember. And then I went to her reviews on that book, and there were, I think, 3 other reviews written by Black women who all said they had their feelings about the story in general, but they said this author needs to work on their characterizations of Black women.
Yeah.
Setting that aside, I had a different person for whom I read an arc, left them a wonderful review because I loved their first book, or the first book of theirs that I read. I read a second one, and there was a throwaway line in there. These 2 characters were like going to the beach, and there was a throwaway line about something like, and I don't want to quote the exact one, but it was basically, there was raunchy hip hop playing on a nearby speaker. Now that's a throwaway line. Some people might just skip over it and not even notice it. But I sent her a private message and I said, I am not casting any sort of assumption, making any sort of assumption about what you meant by that, but I just want to say something. Hip hop can be raunchy, yes, but so can rock music, so can pop music. Hip hop can also be thoughtful, it can be playful, it could be instructive, it can even be romantic. I said, and when you put in raunchy in front of hip hop, which is inherently tied to Black culture, in a book where there are no Black characters and there are no other references to Black culture, it's offensive because it's such a throwaway line that people might skip over and go, yep, that checks out, and not even notice it. She hired me to be an editor on her team, and I am still on her team to this day. Now, I wasn't looking for a job. I was looking just to say, I really enjoy your work and would hate for someone to read this line that you didn't mean anything by. And she said, first of all, thank you for telling me. Thank you for telling me privately and also leaving a wonderful review of the book because I still enjoyed it. I am willing to learn. Would you be willing to join my team? And so that let me know a tale of 2 writers.
Yeah.
So there are going to be people who want the feedback. They're going to, actually, she's over here. There are going to be people who want the feedback and there are going to be people who don't. Yeah, I want to be clear about that. But because of that, I know also as a writer, there are going to be people who love what you wrote. And I said this in a video, there's going to be people who feel like, wow, this is great. There are going to be other people who feel like, why are you writing about Black people? Or why are you writing about deaf people? Just stay in your lane. You can only write for your audience. And that goes, like you were talking about people who don't want to read dark romance. Well, then put the book down. So you can't write for the detractors. You have to write for your fans and write for yourself, of course.
I love all of that. And there's like a million things I want to touch upon. Like there's not one can of worms. There's so many cans of worms. But I do want to ask your opinion about something because I have a rule for myself that I have never shared. And that's if I have minorities or a marginalized group in my books, they are never to be the villain. And when I have Black people in my books, I love for their jobs to be things of a caregiver, like daycare or something that breaks the mold, because I know like psychology wise in our culture, there are a lot of things where it's like when people envision, a Black man, he's hardly ever smiling, but Black people smile and they should be.
And they're gorgeous when they do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that's one of my rules is they'll never be the villain. Yes. And the other rule is I love for their job to be something that is not in that stereotypical, like I want it to be more of, everybody is capable of everything. Yes. And I want that. What are thoughts about that or any because I hate stereotypes.
It's interesting you mentioned villain because I actually did a video answering the question, can you have a villain be a person of color? And I think you absolutely can.
I think I know you can.
You absolutely can.
As a white woman, I don't want that. Like
And you don't, and that's the
yeah.
thing, you don't have to. But if someone, because one of the examples I gave was think about Samuel L. Jackson's role in Kingsman, the Secret
He's
Service.
amazing. Oh, I
He was
love,
phenomenal in that.
yeah.
And what I love about it is he was full on Sam Jackson and all of his Sam Jackson-ness, which is inextricable from his blackness. But his blackness was not the reason for his villainy. And it's the same when you have a black or a deaf or a Mexican antagonist. You can have a situation where two people are up for the same job. And so the antagonism is coming from the fact that you both want the same thing and there's only one available. One, if you're going to do that, they can't be the only person of that race or that group in your book. So I like the Sith rule of two. We don't use it the way the Sith do, but you need the rule of two to help prevent that. If you want to have an antagonist of a different group, then make sure there are at least one other person of the same group and same gender who is different to avoid that possibility. I also think that subverting stereotypes by, having the black coach, but he coaches wrestling or he coaches drama or something is a really great subversion. But I do think that there is an argument for if you're going to write a black man being, let's say, a teacher in the inner city. Should a white writer write that? Probably not, just because there's too many layers of difference between your experience, most likely, and what you're trying to write. And we don't want it to come off like a Dangerous Minds kind of situation. You want something that feels authentic. And I think what I respect about your rules is that they're coming from a place that allows you to write what makes you tick and allows you to create characters that you can pour life into in a way that works. Someone else may need rules that kind of say, okay, well, right now, based on where I'm at, I need to keep my characters of color or marginalized groups to secondary characters. I need to make sure that they're not involved in any antagonism at all. I need to make sure they're all sunny and positive. Now, someone might say, oh, so we can't be angry. Well, see, again, you can't please everyone.
Yeah.
You just can't. Because, for example, someone asked me, well, what do you think if you're using characters of color or marginalized groups in minor roles? Well, doesn't that flirt with tokenism? I say no, because there's ways to avoid tokenism just because you have a character in a minor role. Like I mentioned earlier, the next door neighbor can wave and say hello when you're running late again and invite them for dinner and say, hey, somebody was rummaging through your cans the other night. It's not a huge plot point, but the detective now knows, oh, someone's sneaking around my house.
Yeah.
The other way that you avoid tokenism, oh, Lord, did I lose my point? I was waiting for that to happen.
I was
waiting for that. Your late 40s, right?
Yeah. Menopause is so fun. Let me tell you.
I love when you're like,
oh, I know what it was.
No, really, that word. She's like, door. I'm like, yeah, that thingy.
Yeah, it just shot away. The other thing is, there are people who would object to the perceived tokenism. But there are also people who would object to you creating this character, putting them in a major role and doing it poorly. So you can't, and I understand the urge where it's like, I just don't want to offend anybody. Well, honey, there are other ways to diversify your cast without going with race. You can go with neurodivergence. You can go with height. I mean, for goodness sake, write a woman who's tall, write a man who's short. Instead of him being 6 foot, maybe he's 5'7". Oh my God, the scandal. But there are ways to diversify your cast to get used to the idea of not just writing what comes to you easily. And so I think, honestly, I feel like the desire to diversify your cast is a good one. And it's okay to do it incrementally. It's okay to write something and trunk it. It's like I said the other day, if you've never baked before, you're not going to start with a croquembouche. If you've never sewn before, you're not going to start with your best friend's wedding gown. So baby step your way in, write something that may never see the light of day. Join a creative writing group where you can get that kind of feedback, get your feet wet before you put something out in the universe that's under your professional umbrella. And now you're just like, but I was just trying, baby. We know you were trying, but you just weren't ready. And that's okay.
Also, I like to say, smile today without fear of tomorrow. Just from a
Amen.
spirituality side. Exact. Amen. And I really do think that if more people let go of fear, gave it a go, and then just be smart. have a sensitivity reader.
Mhm.
Look
Yes.
and go through the little checklist in your mind where, am I using any kind of words, whether it was consciously or subconsciously, like raunchy hip hop? Did something come up or no? Go through it, find a sensitivity reader who's comfortable and take on criticism and be open to it without fear.
Yeah.
And I think if we
Yeah,
can
'cause
do that,
yeah, there's so many things in society that, like her saying raunchy hip hop, is so embedded in a lot of us that we then don't even think of write it, and we don't even think twice about it. And all of a sudden, it's like when she probably was like, oh
She
my God,
was.
that was
She
awful.
she
Like, yeah,
really was. And I
Mhm.
really had to say to her, and I said to her at the end, please hear my heart. This is in no way some sort of gotcha. I knew there was something going on. It's more of a, I can read that, recognize it for what it is. It's a throwaway line you didn't think too much about without it becoming an issue. But I would hate for someone to miss out on the wonder of your work. She is one of my favorite writers, and miss out on it because they think this line says more about you than it really does. Because I think there's a difference between ignorance, which is just a lack of insight and information, and willful prejudice. A
yeah,
lot of it is just ignorance
and unlearning,
and
and
unlearning.
learning.
Yes.
so
Yeah,
much
being
in our
more
culture.
aware.
Yeah,
Really,
Yeah.
oh my
we
God,
don't
that
know
was
until we know.
yeah.
Or sometimes you have to step in a pile of shit to realize that wasn't supposed to be there,
But
and
I think
Yeah.
what's so scary is these people are probably wanting to try, and even us older that have been here for a while, is that TikTok right
Uh-oh.
now is on a witch hunt for, like you said, those one-liners that mostly it was
I
ignorance.
keep
Mostly
hearing
it was that throwaway
them.
line that, oh my God, it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's like they're like, we're gonna burn your books, you're racist, you're like, and you're like, oh.
I do
Yeah.
think
And
that
it's
So that's where they
hard
get
because
scared
you
and suck
kind of
in.
understand it's hard because what's happening is folk are fed up
Mhm.
because it feels like we've had to swallow so much. And
Mhm.
what's happening
Yeah.
is the pendulum has swung, I think, too far the other way. And this happens a lot. And I think TikTok, for all of its wonder, is also ripe for witch hunts and for we're going to pick this one thing. I mean, I was really not trying to go there, but even with the Handmaid's Tale episode the other night,
You
there
were
are
there. You did bring it up.
I did, and I'm going to bring it up,
Do
but just for
it,
this
yeah.
reason. Even for that, there are people now who are so happy about how that episode went. And for those of us who have problems with it from a storytelling standpoint and also from character development and all these other things, instead of, if you're happy with the episode, be happy with the people who are happy. This is not necessarily a beatitudes moment, but mourn with those who are mourning or stay over there. But what's happening is those who are not upset are gleefully trotting onto the comment sections and just like, well, this is what it should have been. And I don't know why you feel that way. And it's like, why are you here?
Mhm.
I think
You're just here to be mean. That's your cardio. Okay, great. Sure.
right now, I don't even think it's right now. It's for as long as we've existed, since we used to have with the Roman, what is it called, where people fought to the death and people cheered. The Roman
Gladiator
Colosseum.
games. Yeah, I read
We've
about it.
had,
Yeah,
yeah,
Oh,
there's
yeah,
gladiators.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, for as long as we've ever existed, I think that there's an atmosphere of taking out your own pain and anger onto other people sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and having this feeling about it. So in TikTok is just like the Roman Colosseum. It really
Totally.
can be. And there's a lot of things that are valid there. And then there are people who will see that as a green light to just take out anger and pain onto somebody else, whether or not that thing that is valid has anything to do with what we're talking about, or whether it's the Handmaid's Tale episode or whatever it may be. I
Right.
think that especially right now with the stress and chaos and the pain that the US in particular, but also worldwide, right, is
Mm-hmm.
going through. Um, a moment where you can just hit somebody and like, especially online,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
in
People
that.
Those
get high
keyboard
off of that.
warriors are out in mass
Yes.
right now. Yeah.
That's why I just keep swiping. This is a
Yeah.
negative review on my book. That's fantastic. Where is my crystal packing video? Like,
Also,
I'm here for
the
this.
delete button is my friend.
It is
Yes.
delete black.
Because
Right.
you do, you feel that way. Oh, great. Delete. And like, because someone even commented on one of my Handmaid's Tale posts, I don't know if this comment section is organically all on the same side. And I'm like, it's not organic. Delete, because this is my page.
Literally.
This is my page.
Yeah.
I
You
love
are
that.
free to say whatever you want in
On your
Uville,
Yeah.
but you're not going to come here and do that. Not today.
I do want to say that when we're receiving criticism, though, in a moment where if it does feel like a pile-on or things get blown up and some things are valid and some things don't appear to be valid, it's also okay to take a step back, take a minute, have a therapy appointment, read a book, think about things, write your thoughts
Eat
down,
some chocolate.
literally take a moment, take a breath.
Yeah.
You know,
because there can be truth.
Yes.
Because I love a good intellectual debate, because I love hearing something that makes me go, I didn't consider that. I don't agree with you necessarily, but but what happens a lot of times is it's just this hyperbolic explosion of just nonsense. And it's like, well, see, I'm sorry, I am too intellectual to take that comment seriously. So my favorite button.
Get rid of the bad face. If you can get rid of that, and if you can some people are in pain and that comment is not for me.
Yes. And it's not even about me, because if that's what you spend your days doing, that is far more about you and your stuff. And that's between you and the God you pray to. I will be praying for you at night. You know, Lord, bless all these angry, hateful people with nothing else to do. But I'm not going to let you come, especially when there's attacking in my comments. And thankfully, I do want to say that what's really been beautiful about all of this discussion is when I see people asking questions about sensitivity, not even sensitivity reading, but how to write inclusively in the comments, and how the comments will be, well, maybe you should try this, and have you done this? And so there's little pockets of support going on. And people have inboxed me and said, I really appreciate you talking about this, because no one really is that they have found. I'm sure someone is somewhere. And I just let them know, like, I'm here to answer questions, because I'm very difficult to offend. It may be my Christianity and the fact that I just believe that, you know, a lot of people, the things they say, they're not really about me. And so if I know you're asking a question because you're trying to understand, just put it the way you need to put it. Now, if you're dropping N words and F words all over the place, that's a different story. But you can't get the answer you want if you don't ask the question that's on your mind. So ask it, and then we'll go from there. And at least you know you've asked the question the way it was on your heart. And if you're talking to me, you're not going to get blasted off, because I don't believe in doing that. How can I invite you to ask me a question and then get upset at the way you've asked? That's a terrible way to go about having a conversation, regardless of the topic.
I think that's why so many people are comfortable with you, is because of that attitude. And I love that. I've just been sitting here listening to you in the way
I know, I've been listening to you all day. I'm like, that's why I'm like,
I'm
kept
so
scrolling on TikTok.
I'd be glad to come back, because I'm having a ball with y'all.
I would love that. And I feel like you can feel your love for the message and for inclusivity in writing diversity. And you can really feel that love, and people are comfortable in love.
Yes. And I do love writers. Like it actually, I mean, I'm also persnickety and cranky. And so I will stop reading something in a heartbeat just because I don't like the font. But it also hurts me when someone's written something that had so much potential. And this is not even just about sensitivity, it's plot and character and structure. And I'm just like, where is your editor? Why didn't somebody catch this? Because this is your baby and you pour so much into it. And then it hits it hits the airwaves or whatever. And someone reads it and they're just like, oh, I couldn't, it was a mess. And then you get your hands on it and I'm reading it like, this was a fixable problem. And it breaks my heart. And actually, when I self-published my novel years ago, the reason I was able to do it is because I had friends who rallied around me and said, oh, this is what you need to do. And they literally sat on the phone with me for 3 hours. And this is before I was editing the way I am now. I was editing more nonfiction then. And they really sat me down and we talked about it. And one of them hadn't even read my book. She just knew a lot about editing. And she let me just go on and on and on for 3 hours on, remember Skype, SMS?
Yes.
We could just type to your heart's content. We did that for 3 hours. And the way I felt when that call ended, even though it came on the heels of me being rejected by a publisher, I felt like I'm not going to do it tonight. but I can fix this book because they took the time to tell me what I needed to know and to hear me out. And if I could give that to someone else, I'll do it all day long. And that's actually why I became an editor in the first place, because I want to help you tell the story you want to tell. And to do that, though, I may have to tell you the things you may not want to hear, but I'll tell you from the perspective of not you suck writing, but hey, here's something you may not have considered. This is the issue. This is why it will probably be an issue for readers. And this is what you can do to fix it. Because without that last part, I'm just like, yeah, that sucked. Whew, good luck. But I'm going to tell you, here's what I would suggest you do it in keeping with what you've already written. And I think that's really been helpful for me from a writing perspective, but also as an editor. I enjoy doing that for other writers. And it seems like they can feel that, which makes me feel good, that what I feel is actually coming across.
Is your love...
You could definitely write another book for us.
Yeah. Is your love language acts of service?
My love language is whatever a person wants to give me authentically.
Yeah. So you're
because I have 7 kids and 6 grandchildren. So I will take whatever. Yeah, exactly. My husband was a divorced father of 5 when we met. I had no kids. And so I insta mom of 5, and they were between the ages of 8 and 14. Ooh. And then we had 2 children. And from my older children, I have 6 grandbabies. And so now they're between the ages of 3 and 11. So they're not babies anymore. And so I've learned that people show love typically in the way they want it. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather have this than that. But if I can feel your heart and what you're doing, I'll take it. Because you don't have to do anything. You know, we all have so much going on. For someone to even send you a text like, hey, HBD, oh my God, I got an HBD and there were balloons. And yeah. Even though it's like, well, I'd rather have a card or a phone call, but you didn't have to take the time to HBD me with a balloon emoji. So I will take it.
I love that. I love that.
Kind of same way, yeah.
Yeah, I know we're running out of time. I feel like we barely scratched the surface. So
I know. I'm like, we need to have you back.
I know.
Because there's so many other things I want to talk to you about. I was just like, oh my God, there's that and there's that, but I know you need to go. So can we have you back again someday?
Of course, yes.
Okay. I would love to talk about developmental editing. It's what I was going to start with, but we dove right in. So
yeah, I know.
That is actually my passion. Also, like, I can talk about it.
Yeah, heartbreaking it is for author, you too, like reading a story that you feel like had so much potential and they just were lazy and chose the, like the easy way out, and it's like this wrap up and you're like, oh my God, that had so much potential. I'm so excited.
It hurts.
So I'd love to get into all that.
Yeah.
I'm from Hollywood. Like I came from LA. So you and I, like, we could talk about that, like how they take a book and they'll twist it into what they want to do because they have to take their twist on it, and it's usually bad, and Hollywood makes me so angry.
Which is why I always have to say The Age of Innocence is one of the best book to film adaptations in history. Daniel Day-Lewis, Michelle Pfeiffer, Winona Ryder, it was flawless, and it just makes me happy when I think about it and I say, see, that happened. So we can hope that other things will happen just as good.
All the hope. There is so much hope out there. Yeah.
Let's leave it on the hope. So thank you so much.
Let's leave it on the hope. Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Thank you for having me. I'll be glad to come back.
For all of our listeners, leave comments, questions. Also, where can they find you?
I am Prose Without Thorns. It is my business name. Prose is in writing without thorns. I am on TikTok. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Denise Leora Madre. But please come find me on TikTok because that's where the fun happens.
It is fun. It is fun for all of everything else that happens on the platform. It's my favorite platform.
It is, yeah.
Yes, and finding you is one of those like perks that like it's all worth it. Like I stalk you. I think I stalk you.
Listen, that's the kind of stalking I can get with. So thank you.
For coming on, and everybody remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share this with your bestie. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.